If you claim Social Security at 62, your maximum benefit in 2026 comes out to $2,969 a month. Wait until 70, and that same check climbs to $5,181, which works out to a gap of $2,212 every single month for the exact same work history. Same person, same earnings, record. With the only thing changing being the date you signed the paperwork. Here is what nobody tells you about that gap. The Social Security Administration knows this math down to the penny, and they publish it openly on ssa.gov. But almost no retiree actually sits down and runs the numbers. Because the real cost of claiming early is buried in 3 places, most people never think to look. Today, I'm walking you through all 3 of them. By the time this video ends, you'll understand more about how Social Security actually works than 90% of the people currently collecting a check. Let's get into it. Roughly 1 million Americans are pulling a Social Security check right now in 2026. This year's COLA landed at 2.8%, and the average retired worker is bringing home about $2,071 a month, which is the number a huge chunk of the country is living on. Most people assume the system runs on a simple equation where you work, you retire, and you collect. But Social Security isn't a savings account. It is a formula, and that formula has trapdoors stitched right into it. These are trapdoors that quietly drain tens of thousands of dollars out of a 20-year retirement. And nobody at the SSA is going to pick up the phone and warn you about them. Let me walk you through the 3 biggest ones. Trapdoor number 1 is the claiming age penalty, and the math behind it is harsher than most retirees realize. Anyone born in 1960 or later has a full retirement age of 67. Not 65, not 66, but a flat 67. And filing at 62 triggers a permanent 30% cut to your monthly check that never grows back. Spouses take an even worse beating, because a spousal benefit claimed at 62 gets sliced by 35%. Flip the equation the other direction, though, and something interesting happens. Every year you delay past full retirement age earns you what the SSA calls delayed retirement credits, worth 8% annually, which means waiting from 67 to 70 boosts your benefit by roughly 24% on top of your full amount. Think about where else a 65-year-old can pocket a guaranteed inflation-adjusted 8% annual return, because the honest answer is nowhere. No annuity sells that deal, no bond pays that yield, and it is quietly the best arrangement in retirement income. Yet most people walk straight past it. So why does anyone still claim early? The usual reason traces back to something called the break-even age, which IRMAA pegs around 78 years and 8 months when you compare filing at 62 against waiting until 67. The pitch sounds reasonable on paper, since claiming early wins on total dollars if you don't live past 78. But here is the thing the break-even chart leaves out. Social Security isn't an investment. It is longevity insurance, designed to protect you in the years when going back to work isn't an option. The data is brutal on this point, because a healthy 65-year-old woman today has an average life expectancy near 85, and a 65-year Old man sits around 82, which means most retirees are sailing right past the break, even line, and locking in a 30% pay cut they never had to take. In 2024, about 26% of new claimants still filed at 62, according to SSA data reported by Yahoo Finance, which is down from roughly 60% back in 1998. So people are catching on. But 1 in 4 is still leaving real money on the table. Trapdoor number 2 is sneakier, and this one came straight out of Congress. Back in 1983, lawmakers decided to start taxing Social Security benefits, setting the threshold at $25,000 of provisional income for a single filer. A second tier got bolted on in 1993 at $34,000, above which up to 85% of your benefits become taxable. Now, here is the detail that should make your blood pressure spike, because those thresholds have never been indexed for inflation, not once, in over 40 years. Back in 1983, $25,000 qualified as a solid upper middle class income, and today it barely clears the poverty line for a couple, with the inflation adjusted equivalent landing somewhere around $80,000 by 2026. The actual threshold sits frozen at $25,000. The result is exactly what you'd expect, since every passing year drags more retirees into paying federal tax on benefits they already funded through payroll taxes during their working life. Charles Schwab spelled it out plainly, and I'll quote them directly. Just a small increase in your provisional income can take you from no taxes on your Social Security benefits to having 85% of your benefits taxed. A single Roth conversion can do it. A capital gain on a house sale can do it. An RMD from your 401k can do it, because the line never moves. You're absorbing a stealth tax hike every year through inflation alone. And the Concord Coalition, along with the Congressional Research Service, have both called this out as Social Security's quiet stealth tax. The problem compounds from there, because the same higher income that drags your benefits into taxation also triggers IRMAA, which is the Medicare surcharge on higher income retirees. Cross $109,000 single or $218,000 married in 2026. And your Medicare Part B and Part D premiums start climbing fast, with the top tier costing nearly $7,000 extra per person per year in premiums alone. IRMAA pulls from your tax return filed 2 years ago, which means a financial move you made back in 2024 is showing up on your 2026 Medicare bill. And nobody warns you about any of this at the retirement seminar. Trapdoor number 3 is the most painful of the bunch, because it lands when someone is already grieving, when one spouse passes away. The surviving spouse keeps the higher of the two benefits, just one, and the smaller check vanishes entirely. Picture a couple where the husband collects $2,800 a month and the wife collects $1,800, putting their household total at $4,600. He dies. Her check rises to $2,800, but the $1,800 is gone forever, which means she just lost roughly $1,800 a month for every month of the rest of her life, with the same rent, the same property taxes, and 40% less Social Security coming through the door. The hidden math inside that math gets worse, because if the higher earner claimed early at 62, they didn't just shrink their own check. They shrank the survivor benefit their spouse will live on potentially for decades. There is a rule called the widower's limit provision that caps the survivor benefit based on what the deceased was actually receiving. Generally, no higher than 82.5% of the deceased's full PIA if they claimed early. This is exactly why financial planners, including Mary Beth Franklin, who is being called the Google of Social Security, keep repeating the same line, that in a married couple, the higher earner delaying isn't just about their own retirement. It is about protecting whichever spouse outlives the other. I already know what some of you are thinking, which is, why should I wait if the whole program goes broke in 2033? Let's talk about that with real numbers. The 2025 Trustees Report, the official one, projects the Oasis Trust Fund hits depletion in 2033, with the combined fund following in 2034. And the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget estimates a typical dual-earner couple would face roughly an $18,100 annual benefit cut if Congress sits on its hands and does nothing. The doom headlines leave out the part that actually matters, though, because even at depletion, incoming payroll taxes still cover about 77% of scheduled benefits. Benefits don't go to zero, they get reduced, with about a 23% haircut if no legislation passes. And historically, Congress has always acted before the cliff. Lawmakers stepped in back in 1983 with the Greenspan Commission, and they stepped in again in January of 2025 when the Social Security Fairness Act repealed WEP and GPO and restored benefits to nearly 3 million public sector retirees. Plan around 2033, but don't panic around it. Here is what I want you walking away with. Social Security isn't a mystery. The math is public, the formulas are published, and the bend points, the reduction percentages, and the tax thresholds are all sitting on ssa.gov right now. The only reason it feels hidden is that nobody walks you through it. Before you file, pull your statement. Look at your number at 62, at your full retirement age, and at 70. Then, sit down with the income side, meaning your 401k withdrawals, your pension, your spouse's benefit, and your provisional income, and figure out which trapdoor you're walking into before you sign the application. Not after. Once you claim, that decision follows you for 20, 25, sometimes 30 years, and the SSA isn't going to call you back to fix it. If this cleared up the math for you, hit subscribe, because I break down a different piece of the retirement puzzle every week. And I'll see you in the next one.